Today we are going to predict and preview the national championship game between number 1 Alabama and number 2 Clemson, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today we are going to preview and predict the national title game between number 1 Alabama and number 2 Clemson. Now, for the folks that ain't down with the channel or don't watch it on the regular, yeah, you can see we talk a lot about OU here, college football, sports in general, but I got a DBZ shirt because I don't really have a dog in the fight. I just think that the game is fascinating, and it is the national title game for the sport that I love the most. So, yeah, I got a vested interest in it. And I think that to start with, Alabama and Clemson were the sexy picks to make it to the national title game again. And since the college football playoff has been formed, those two teams have risen to the top. Now, a lot of folks would have predicted Alabama to be there, and they've been there every single year that we've had the playoff. But Clemson's rise basically came out of nowhere because Clemson ain't been no powerhouse, dog. Matter of fact, Clemsoning was a thing not too long ago, and it was also a thing for West Virginia to hang 70 on them. All right? So watching Clemson become basically Dabo Swinney, take on his image, has been fascinating. With Deshaun Watson, with Kelly Bryant, and now with Trevor Lawrence, a true freshman who even I think has outperformed his own expectations for himself and what he thinks he ought to be capable of doing. Because every time you think the moment might be getting too big for that dude, it's not. He absolutely can play, and his ability to make throws like you read about is unmatched. Like, he and Pat Mahomes have this thing where they can be rolling to their left, throw it back across their right, and launch a ball 50 yards through the air. Accurately put it on the body and the hands of their receivers. It's just not normal. Sunshine can absolutely play some football, right? But he also has an outstanding supporting cast with Justin Ross, with Higgins, with Adam Choice, and with, of course, Travis Etienne, right? Who just broke the school record for rushing yards against Notre Dame in what many have called, myself included, the ACC title game. Feels like the same thing that we had with Alabama and Georgia, but we're not going to be able to get around this with 4 teams in the playoff. I just hate that Notre Dame didn't just up and join the ACC because they basically are in the ACC, and they ruined another college football playoff because they didn't show up to work. They got drubbed 30-3 by a very good Clemson team, but they could have been drubbed 3 weeks ago and saved everybody the heartache and the trouble. More to the point, Ohio State's got a bone to pick, so does Georgia. 2 losses, you're not going to get a college football playoff, but yeah, you can yell about it. I think that Ohio State should have had Notre Dame's spot because Notre Dame is as soft as UCF. It's Northern UCF. It is UCF with more money. It's really UCF without Disney World. Notre Dame football cannot be trusted in a New Year's Six bowl, and until they join a conference, I don't think they should be allowed to play. I really don't. I think that they're robbing from the rest of us, and they're trying to hold up some sort of tradition as the reason for which they just won't get with the times and share the money. But they got what they deserve from Clemson. Clemson put together an outstanding demolition of that team, not just with Trevor Lawrence, but with outstanding defense, particularly defensive line play. In a game where Dexter Lawrence was figuring to be a really big deal, losing your 350-pound all-pro, all-tackle, nose guard, all whatever, that's usually a big deal for a lot of folks. Not at Clemson. Clemson, they got this guy named Christian Wilkins. They got this other guy named Austin Bryant. They got this dude they can bring off the bench named Albert Huggins. They can absolutely do what they want on the defensive line because that's how Brent Venables built out his defense. They can rotate in 6-7 dudes that are going to go in the first or second round of the NFL draft. They can bring in guys that just haven't had their opportunity to shine because they're just not that old yet. And that's how they continue to just eat you alive. You saw it with Ian Book, who most folks thought was doing a pretty good job, one of the better quarterbacks in all of college football. That dude was running for his life because therefore we're better than Notre Dame's 5. And that's the thing that I'm most interested to see with Alabama and Clemson is you have the 2 best defensive lines in the country going at each other. And that in and of itself is a whole nother issue that we can get into about how crucial defensive line recruiting is to college football, particularly interior defensive linemen. If you do not have elite defensive tackles, you're not going to win national championships. And the fact that they continue to end up going to places like Clemson and Alabama tells you everything you need to know. Georgia took in 5 stars this year. They have defensive linemen that can play, right? They just took a couple L's when they shouldn't have. But when they didn't have those sorts of defensive linemen like, say, Quinnen Miller, they had a Thorpe Award in DeAndre Baker, right? Julian Love, one of the best defensive backs in the country, a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, played at Notre Dame. You're seeing the better defensive players play on college football playoff teams, which is why you should watch the exit video that I made about Oklahoma and just reviewing the autopsy for the 2018 season, basically coming back to what Clemson and Alabama have that Oklahoma doesn't, which is defensive linemen. So when you're looking at Alabama, you see Quinnen Miller, who is the best player in the college football playoff, bar none. Kyler Murray is the best player in college football. Quinnen Miller is the best player in the playoff. I don't necessarily think that Clemson can not stop him. I think that they're going to have a hard time stopping him, if at all. I think Quinnen Miller is due for 3 sacks in this game. But if they can stop Quinnen Miller from crushing in the interior of the offensive line and making Trevor Lawrence run for his life, yeah, absolutely, Clemson could beat Alabama. The same thing goes for Alabama. If they can stop Christian Wilkins and Austin Bryant and Albert Huggins from making Tua Tagovailoa run for his life, yeah, they could absolutely beat Alabama. But I don't know what they're going to do about that RPO, read option, quick slant that I've made a video about that I said was going to eat Oklahoma alive, that ate Oklahoma alive. I don't know what what are they going to do? Are they going to bring down the safety into the box like they said they should? Or are they really going to continue to trust their nickel safety or linebacker to take care of that slot receiver? That could be Henry Ruggs, that could be Jalen Waddle, that could be Devontae Smith, and that could be the Biletnikoff Award winner, Jerry Jeudy. Now, I don't think that Jerry Jeudy should have won the Biletnikoff Award. I don't even think he should have been a finalist. But he did show up in a college football playoff semifinal. And when you're talking about wide receivers, Alabama just has more and better wideouts than Clemson. I mean, it's not a knock on Clemson. They're plenty good. It's just Alabama's better. This bit about them having a Big 12 offense is true. They do have 4 guys they can throw the ball to. They do have 3 running backs that they trust, and they do have the second best quarterback in all of college football. You have number 2 and number 3 playing against each other. Kyler Murray is at home preparing for either an NFL or a Major League Baseball career. So you're watching the defensive line play. You're watching what Quinnen Miller is going to do. You're watching what Christian Wilkins is going to do. You're also watching what Isaiah Buggs and Christian Miller are going to do. But where is the weakness if you're Alabama? Well, it's actually Patrick Surtain II, for which we saw CeeDee Lamb for Oklahoma was getting what he wanted. That was the weak spot on the defense. Deontay Thompson at safety, no, didn't want any part of that guy. You know, they're all over the field. You were looking for matchups. And the matchups were wherever CeeDee Lamb was lined up, and he's usually lined up across from Patrick Surtain. So by the time Kyler Murray and Lincoln Riley figured that out, it was too late and you couldn't close the gap. You're down 28-0. There's nothing you can do. But I expect to see Alabama try to shore that up, and I also expect Clemson to take full advantage, to line Justin Ross up against that dude and go after him, because I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to run the ball. They weren't great at running against Notre Dame until the second half, and there's nothing about Alabama's defense that tells me that they're going to be great at running it this time. Now, if you're Alabama, where are you going to attack Clemson? The interior? Nah, not really. The ends? Nah, not really. But you're going to try to use this read option to basically read one of these tackles or these ends. You probably want to take Christian Wilkins out of a play. So anytime you can run a read option at that guy and put him in a bind, make him the conflict player, you're going to do it. And you're going to take your chances in one-on-one coverage when you can get it. And if you see 2 high safeties or you see cover 2, you're going to try to split it with that seam route, because guess what else Clemson was good at doing? They were good at throwing that seam route too on play action. That was that play variation of it, play action to the seam in the slot, that was there for Clemson, that was there for Bama, and it'll be there for somebody in the national title game. It's just about who's going to have better players. And if you're scheming against both of these quarterbacks that are very good at seeing coverage, at adjusting coverage, at running the offense, at knowing what they want to do and knowing what you want to do, you're going to have to do some variation of this. You're going to have to show them different looks. You're going to have to make old things look new and new things look different. You're going to have to play the game with them. You're going to have to do the chess thing. You're going to have to do what Pete Golding was doing with Kyler Murray. Because there were moments where Kyler Murray did not know what he saw. And that was the first time all year that you could say that. That somebody was able to give that guy the kind of looks that would make him hesitate. That would make him hold the ball longer than he wanted to hold the ball. And do what you want to do with that guy, which is make him pull it and run. Because as much as Kyler Murray contributed to that game, over 400 yards by himself, 300 yards passing, 100 yards rushing, having him be the offense, exactly what Alabama wanted. Because he wasn't able to spread the ball around. His most dynamic playmaker, Hollywood Brown, was not even there. You couldn't run the ball, and you frustrated the offensive line. That's a win if you're Alabama. And if you can do that against Clemson, you're going to win. Clemson can do that against Alabama, they're going to win. But now you're up against Chucky and Nick Saban, who is a dude who I watched slam his headset down on the ground, up 18 points. I don't understand it, but I also haven't won as many national championships as that guy has won. I also haven't put together a dynasty in the 21st century and out-recruited everybody and still managed to get out of bed and have something to play for. And if you're Dabo Swinney, you know that. You know what it is out there at Alabama. You also know what it means to coach for Gene Stallings. And that's one of the ways that you built your program. But now, you have to convince your players that, hey man, we've been here before and we can win again. Because you only won the once. And Alabama, they know how to win this game. And if the Tua goes down, they got Jalen Hurts. If Trevor goes down, you really trust Chase Bryce? I don't know, man. I'm really interested to find out and see. Because somebody's weakness is going to be exposed in this game. That's why I love the national title game. It's very rarely the kind of game where somebody doesn't be like, oh, that weakness was there all the time. No, the weakness was there all the time. They just have the players to exploit it. And that's why this game is so much fun, and I'm so interested to watch it. And I can't wait to see what these two defenses do to these two offenses, because those are the stars. Stars are the defenses. As good as Tua is, as good as Trevor is, Quinnen Miller, Christian Wilkins, those are the guys for which I'm going to watch, because they'll tell me everything I need to know about who's winning, who's losing, and who's going to raise the trophy at the end of the game. All right, that's it from me. Doses.